Right, we are here. Hello, Margie.
Hello, good morning. Well, good morning, good afternoon for you.
Yeah, definitely an afternoon. Definitely an afternoon. It feels like it. So, what I tend to do now, I have to say, like the sun has been super shining here. So, I did think to myself, it might just be me, you, and maybe like two other people because like everyone's probably like gone to park, even though I don't know where they're going because the virus hasn't disappeared.
Right.
But everyone is probably just going to go out. So we'll say hi and we'll just carry on talking. I will record. I always record this and then we can share and then we can just go
Awesome.
from there. So it'd be cool.
Yeah.
So, like, listen, can you introduce yourself? I'm not going to say
Can
anything.
I? Oh, okay. So, first of all, thank you for having me on here with you. I've been waiting and waiting like a little kid for Christmas. So excited. So, Margie Crow from the US, obviously, accent, right? And I work as a professor full time ish and do curriculum development and have been in the diversity and equity and inclusion advocacy side of things for almost 20 years. But as a lot of us have been out there on our own for a long time in that work. And so, unfortunately, the events of the world, which have become very tragic, has led me to this amazing new tribe of advocates, which, I'm grateful to be part of your tribe. So thank you.
Well, it's amazing. So we've got some people. I was going to say hello because I recognise some people. Hi, James. Nice to see you. Hi, Peter. Always always supporting. So I'm just going to like wave and say hey, 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 hey. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is, we kind of touched on this before in our chat. It's this idea of like ally looks like for this. So one of the things that I've been very conscious of is when I'm, talking and pointing my finger and giving my views of the world about what I feel like white people should be doing or non-black people should be doing to support. There is this kind of element of, for those people thinking, but who am I,
Mm-hmm.
right, to be able to have an opinion, have a voice, like use my voice, like what can I do when they're still kind of like in this discomfort thing, meaning that they really, really, really want to help, they want to support, they are like not even standing with me, they're like right in front, like come on, like what can we do to kind of dismantle structural racism, etc., etc. And I feel like here, I don't know how this plays out in the US, but particularly here in the UK, there's lots of like neat little sound bites around what it means to be an ally. People are throwing out like, I'm not bothered about the terminology. Just whoever is supportive of, eradicating systemic racism and structural racism, whoever is supportive of addressing racial inequities and inequalities, and whoever is supportive of challenging, white supremacy, meaning a dominant race purely because of the color of their skin. Like, I'm saying, like, you are in the wagon, you're on the wagon. But there are lots of conflicting comments and views, and I just thought it'd be really good to have a conversation. And I'll be really honest, it'd be nice to have a conversation with a white person. Do you know what I mean? Because then we can really get into it
Right.
because you understand and we can go there, and hopefully that will just help people just start to not be so fearful,
Yeah.
of like saying the wrong thing and doing the wrong thing. They too, because we need everybody's voice, don't we?
No, absolutely. And I think it is a fear thing, right? So unless you're a sassy person that's not really concerned about people's views or losing your job or losing family members, it definitely comes from a place of fear, right? So fear of speaking out, fear of the reaction, and then also just fear of not really knowing what to say and not wanting to offend.
Mm.
But certainly, this is something, especially in the white community, there's so many different um, sections of this. So you have people that are just outright racist, right? So, I'm not sure we're doing anything with them. And then there's this whole movement here of white people that call themselves allies, but it's kind of verbal, right? There's really no action behind it. And then there's people that really, I think, are allies and what I call accomplices. Like these are the people that really want to get in there and do the work, but they don't know where to start, or they've been in a situation like I've been over the years where you start and then somebody roadblocks you, and you start and they roadblock you again, or they don't support you, and you really have to limp along alone until you find what I call the tribe, right? So you find your tribe that will work with you on this, but it's not easy. It's, you know, the fear factor, I think, alone keeps them from moving forward. But with that said, I'm really not for letting people make excuses, right? So if there's ever a time for you to have some courage, today's the day, right? It's enough already. It's enough already. It's time to take a step forward.
I'm going to get you to keep talking while I'm just going to change my position. So what that means is I am going to put you on the big screen and you're going to carry on talking because there are people who are watching and listening. And I'm just going to move and then I will rejoin. So carry on.
Okay, so great. So, you know, in the advocacy work, yesterday we had our discussion panel. One of our panel members had posted, explain to what your board was doing. And of course, it's always going to be that one soul, that one grown person that's going to hop on and make fun and try to derail and try to shift the focus away from what we should be doing. So we want you to make an excuse. You're not the one person that should be excuse for wanting to do this work. I've been told that I shouldn't be in this university for all these years. And right? You know, you make it for feeling hurt, it's not really hard. Right? It's the harm that's happening right now. The harm is happening and has happened for hundreds of years. So that's the harm. Even your feeling hurt, if you want to work in advocacy, if you want to jump on the bandwagon, you know, you might be feeling hurt. It's just fun. But the
net result of not jumping on the bandwagon is that there's entire populations of people generationally that are going to continue to get harmed by what is going on across systems. So, you know, and I always tell people, start small. If you don't know where to start where you stand. You know, start in your family, start with talking to your children, start with undoing the curriculum that they've been listening to for decades, right? So, you know, I think about growing up, you know, very white town, and we can talk about that in a minute because I would like to share that with you, kind of what's going on there with this allyship, right? And so it's kind of like, to me, it's false allies. But growing up in a town where it wasn't a race issue, it was all white, it was a poverty versus the wealthy. So, right, that was where your focus was just on getting out of poverty. You didn't think about race. The textbooks were definitely, you know, I mean, to be honest with you, the first time I met someone from South Africa, they were white, and I couldn't put that in context as I didn't know there was white people in Africa. So that tells you that the textbooks I had in the 70s and 80s growing up were so skewed toward, you know, a white person's philosophy. So, you know, I think a lot of this, that people just don't know where to start, or they've been indoctrinated for so long that they're just not even aware of around them or kind of how to do that, even within their own families.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting, just as I reflect, is, sorry, that's my 2-year-old.
That's okay. You know, I love the babies.
My 2-year-old who is waving an ice lolly.
Aww.
And I'm just hoping, okay, my partner has come to take care of everybody. I'm not going to turn so you can see. She's literally waving an ice lolly. Okay, she's gone. My partner and I were having a conversation about this. Well, I remember when we first got together, right? So, you know, I've shared with people before, he's Estonian. And I was saying to him, like, you know, have you ever like dated a black woman before? And we had this whole conversation. And he was saying that, you know, in his country, they only saw black people on television. Right. He used to play basketball. So, you know, so he grew up watching black people as basketballers. He did not see black people anywhere else, not even in cartoons, you know what I mean? Unless they, you know, and obviously, you know, for people who don't know, for a long time, Estonia was occupied by Russia, you know, so there was a whole communism, there was a whole different thing about what they had access to and what they were allowed to have access to when he was growing up. And just having this whole conversation with him around some of the things that he's had to, and still challenging his thinking, you know, and he's able to have that conversation with me because we're together. But, you know, just like when you said you didn't realize there were, you know, white South Africans, like he was saying there's parts of the world that he didn't even know black people were there, you know, so this whole you can't underestimate the impact of not having exposure to Black people. And I think even within the UK, like if you're in London, of course you see, we're like one of the most multicultural cities, wherever, but there are parts of the UK, particularly people who are listening to me, where I am the only Black person that they can hear talk about some of this stuff, because they just don't have the network, they don't have the friends. And I'm not judging, I'm just saying that's the reality, right?
No, absolutely. And I think, as we kind of have talked before about dismantling systems, everybody that's in power right now, or for the most part in these systems across different organizations, are probably in my age range, right? So they all came up, at least here in the US, in this curriculum, or for the most part in this curriculum, that was just very focused on white history and white perspective. And so now they've kind of gone through their lives this way. And, some of us have gotten out around the world, and obviously our perspectives have changed, but that's not going to be the majority of people that we are dealing with as we're trying to look at getting people on board, right? And so I think the part that I struggle with, and I talk to Joseph about a lot, is the fact that in order to get people on the bandwagon, they have to care to begin with, right? And so, why would they care, right? Why would they care?
Margie, can you just say that one more time? Please say that one more time. Say it one more time, Margie. One more.
To get on the bandwagon, they have to care. They just, and I have a child that's differently abled with multiple disabilities, and it's the same thing for her population. People just don't care, and they will just walk by you. But I would say and challenge them back that, who are you? Think about who you are as a person. And if you could literally walk by people that are suffering, that are oppressed, and think nothing of it, and it doesn't keep you awake at night, then you have some soul searching to do, right? And so I'm not going to be able to reach you to motivate you, right? So it's this intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Are we supposed to be, as DEI experts, going into these organizations and getting these leaders to change if they're not already intrinsically motivated to change or to care, right? So unfortunately, right now, we're probably going to have to work within the fact that most of them are going to probably come to us because they're in trouble, right? So they're in trouble, they're getting negative press. They need to fix this, so there's that whole piece of it is, how do we get leadership to change that has no desire to change or to care? Why would they care? Why would they say, here, Shireen, here's my power. Take it. Yeah. I don't need it. I don't want it. Right? It's not going to happen.
No, and I think this is the bit where it's really difficult, because on one hand, I get like as human nature, we only care about what we care about, what we can see and touch, and what we immediately care about, our friends, our family, our neighbors. And I think most people universally would say, if they saw anybody who they know or they're connected with who was hurting, do you know what I mean? They would step out and they would go and help. But when you start talking about racism and race and a group of individuals who are hurting because of the color of their skin, and you're saying to yourself, but I'm a really nice person and I wouldn't treat somebody badly because of the color of their skin, and you cannot get beyond, I wouldn't treat them badly because of the color of their skin. That is, you're not on any bandwagon, and you can't even, dare I say, you can't even call yourself anti-racist from that point of view, because you're so focused on, because I wouldn't do that. It's not a problem for me to care about.
No, absolutely. And I think there's this falsehood right now where, there's so much attention on it. So people are jumping on the bandwagon, but not in the way that you want them to jump on the bandwagon. It's almost to hijack the message, right? There's that piece where, and I'm going to use my hometown, and I hope nobody is offended by this, but I think it's okay if they get uncomfortable from this conversation and me saying this. I looked up the statistics the other day. In my hometown, it has a 1.4% Black population. That's it. It's 2020. Let that sink in for a second. America, right? We call ourselves the melting pot. We think we're inclusive. We pat ourselves on the back. We do a couple marches. We hijack, the hashtag BLM to drive traffic to our websites and our Instagram accounts. And And so my town, they had a big march, right? And so, I love the fact that your mother supports you, and I love that she's on these forums, because I've been having some of the best conversations about race with my mother, who's in her late 70s, who's grown up in this setting. But she's been catching backlash from white people in the town about not marching, not protesting. And I said, okay, let's walk this back for a second. 2020, 1.4% Black population. They're right next to Saginaw, which is, I think, 60% at least Black population. That's not including the Hispanic population. And then Flint. I'm sure you've seen Flint, Michigan on the news with the water. Very high minority populations right next door. How does that happen for decades that these communities did not start to blend? So that is purposeful, right? So as they're marching, as they're chastising people for not marching with them, or, putting hashtag BLM on their Facebook site, and I said, whoa, back it up, because you are the very people for decades that have made sure that you've maintained this homogeneous environment here in this town. And my mom said, well, how do they do that? My friend, doesn't have control over that. And I said, but I think she probably did. They were the bankers, they were the mortgage brokers, they were the executives in the corporations there, which meant they had control over hiring practices, who got a loan for a home, who got, into the sports programs. So I said, I think you need to probably look that. And when they come at you to say you're not supporting enough, ask them what they've physically been doing. Like, what have you been doing other than just typing stuff out on the social media? What did you do over these 40 years that in this day and age that your town is still so white? How is that even possible? I mean, the makeup of America is not that, right? So how is it that town doesn't reflect American demographics at this point?
And you know what? You make a really good point there, Margie, because I talk about this as well, in trying to get people to understand that the moment that we are having now is no dissimilar to the civil rights movement and moments that have happened in the past. In that, at that time, we have all had to make decisions, to your point, about, if there hasn't been the progression that we thought we should have seen by now, if we don't change, how is that going to change?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit like we can't keep looking to other people,
Right.
Margie, it's great. Margie's right over there and she's going to go and fly the flag for us. So because Margie's doing it, like all I'm going to do is just post a little something and that's it. And I guess it goes back to your point about getting people to care enough to do something,
Right.
or to use their voice, to call it whatever it is. And we can talk about that. But, that's the bit that I so desperately spend most of my energy in, all my vibrations, right, just to try and get people to care, because I think you're absolutely right. That's the first step.
Right. And I have absolutely zero answers, on how to do that. I think the best I can personally do is, it's in my home. So I have this discussion with my 13-year-old son right now. And, he looks at me because he's 13 and he's like, she's talking again, right? And I'm, but there are certain things that I'm like, I really need you to hear me. I need you to hear what I'm saying. You're privileged, right? So you did not, even in income wise, like I grew up incredibly poor, but I was still able to move up, and that's holistically different than people that grew up in Saginaw and Flint that didn't have the same opportunities, even in the same poverty level, right? And so I said, you have a very different upbringing, and you've been giving all of this. And so there is a lot that's expected of you. So don't think you're going to video game your way through life, because that's not going to happen. You actually have to step out as a man someday and make some change. And I want you to hear this message loud and clear. So if you listen to nothing else and you leave your room dirty and whatever, and I'm nagging about everything, this is not nagging. This is me trying to, impart into him. He has a huge responsibility to continue to make change. So I think we have to start right where we're standing with our babies, with our grandchildren. And guess what? It means you're going to alienate family. You may lose relationships.
Yeah.
You may have children that don't talk to you. And I'm not saying destroy your family, but is this really just about you? So that becomes back a selfish thing. Well, I have to keep these relationships. But can you honestly just walk away from millions and millions of people who need your help? And, I have to let God and fate just take that over for me, and whatever is to come is to come. But it's enough already. It's enough. This is enough. It's gone on for too long, and you're going to have to step out and have some courage. And if the only place you can have courage is in your own home, then please start there. Please start there.
I think somebody, I just want to jump back because it's a really good question. And I'm also going to go and tell my kids to stop running up and down so you can hear their footsteps. But here is, hey Tish. So she's got a question for you, Margie. And I think this is a really good, Can you see that?
Yes, I can. And so that is really interesting. And I hope my friend Jasia is on here because she actually got to witness this with me last summer. So I'm doing a dissertation on resegregation trends in a school district in a southern state in the United States. And I knew this wasn't going to be popular because it's not my first time at the rodeo with somebody saying I shouldn't be speaking about something that has to do with race. But she sat there with me in class as I presented my proposal just to have my peers. These are all going to be, doctors of education. They are going to be the leadership in your school systems, right? So they are going to be your administrators, your principals, your superintendents. And other than her, I got no support. I actually had people of both races that stopped me and said, you have no business doing this work. And good for them. I mean, I guess maybe I should care more about their opinion, which I don't. And I'm going to do the work that I need to do and that I want to do and that has to be done. But there isn't a whole lot of support. It took me forever to get a dissertation committee to agree to be my committee. So now I finally have a committee, but it's, they're really supportive, but it wasn't easy. So that was just one example recently where people are starting to get to see that kind of roadblock. But I've also had people within the Black community that have said, you're a white girl, you don't have any business talking about race, right? So stop talking about it. And I actually had one educator for when I was looking at doing a 2-city study on this said, don't you come down here and dare say the words resegregation. That is incredibly offensive. And I said, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. I really don't. But this is the reality in the US right now. We are more segregated in our school systems than we were prior to Brown versus the Board of Education. It's a fact. I don't know why it's necessarily happening, but it's happening. And so we're taking that. But we can't be afraid to hurt people's feelings, right? There's harm being done. The segregation that is continuing to happen in this country is harming people. It's harming our future generation. So I'll give you a hug and pat you on the back, and I hope you feel better, but we still have to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think, it's not to that extreme level that you talk about, but when people say here in the UK, oh, we don't have segregated areas. And I'm kind of like, we may not be calling it, but there are parts of certain cities and certain towns that you will not see Black, Asian. So you will see, we will have Black and Asian people and other ethnic minorities together, but you won't see that many white people. And if there are white people in that area and you talk to their families, they will say it's because they haven't yet found a way to get out.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So and then you talk about this certain, again, certain towns, certain cities, and you will say to, a white person, if race is not an issue for you,
right,
and you don't see color, would you send your child to this school in, for those who know London, in Peckham, which is just like and then they go, oh my God, because they can't help it, go, oh my goodness, go, no. And then you go, but why not? Because if it's not an issue for you and you believe that this country is not racist and you believe, why would you not send your children to, fill in the blanks? And I'm sure every town will have their equivalent. And I think that's the bit where, as Dr. Joseph would say, you have to confront people's beliefs and really get in there to understand this isn't just about reading a few books and going, okay, yeah, I get it.
No. And, I think it's kind of at the point too, where we have to start calling some people out. And I don't mean call out your neighbor, but you can, but here in leadership, and I hope Dr. Katina Webster's on here. That's part of our SDIG tribe, because she asked a very, very important question of leadership. Like, what's the first question you ask them? You ask them, where do your children go to school? Because that's pretty much going to tell you everything you need to know for the most part. I mean, there's always obviously exceptions about what that person's belief system is. So I would love for Katina and I to go march into Washington, because we're both around this area. And I have been saying this for such a long time, because I'm not the brightest crayon in the box. So I will never think that I'm the smartest person in the room, but I think there's some glaringly, obviously wrong things with our leadership. When you come to Washington and you preach equity and you preach inclusion, and I'm not political. So I think living in Washington area for 15 years has made me apolitical. I've had enough of both sides. But so when these people come in here and they say, you know, especially certain parties, you know, we're for civil rights. We are, you know, this, that, and the other. I'm like, where do your kids go to school? Because I know for a fact they're in that $40,000 a year school in DC, and DC is very, very segregated, right? So there's an entire section of DC where the schools are almost predominantly Black. And then I can promise you, and this includes our presidents, right, have not sent their children to the public schools. And they will say it's for protection, and I get that, and there is, you know, that risk. But at the same time, what about everybody else? So everybody in Congress and everybody in the Senate has the same fear that their kids are going to be targeted. It's not that. So I think Katina and I would like to go in there and say, where do your kids go to school? Right? And where's the money going? Because the school systems, even in DC, don't even have equal funding. Right? So there's not even equal funding within that piece. Yeah. And I want to make sure you get to respond, but there was something you said about colorblindness that I would love to discuss with you.
Yes, we're gonna get. So I'm just gonna have one. I'm just gonna show this because this is such a very good. I'm just gonna show this for a second. Oh, where's he gone? Hi, Matthew. Thank you. You have no business doing this is a myopic mindset. An African proverb says, if one finger touches the oil, it spreads to all of the fingers. Thank you. Love that.
No, thank you.
You know, and I guess. Thank you. Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
And I'm sorry, Shireen. There was a little delay, and I don't want to step over.
No. No, you're not, don't worry. I was just going to say that's this whole thing, and that's my worry that, and you know, one of the many reasons why I want to keep talking about this is because I worry that we feel like people have to be qualified in some way to be able to help us make the changes that we need to see. I don't mean about academics and all the rest. I mean, literally, you know, back to this point about, you know, who am I? What can I add? Even as a Black person, there are some people that feel like I am not qualified, or I am not big enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. What can I do when I am just, you know? And then a white person is thinking, I am not Black, I don't understand the, you know, not I don't understand, I empathize, but I can never understand the Black lived experience. This is really hurting on my soul. I don't like the, you know, what my eyes have been open to see. But who am I to show support? Who am I to show an opinion? And, you know, I'm moving past even like the fear of saying the wrong thing, but it's this whole idea of if we're not careful, you know, you only hear the voices of the very loud, not the people who care.
No, absolutely. I mean, and I'm guilty, and you've said that to me before. I'm guilty of saying, you know, why would you want me to be on this with you? Like, I'm just a professor, you know, I'm just trying to I don't say quietly, I'm not quiet about any things, but I'm trying to do this work, but I'm kind of, you know, there's part of me, and even with Joseph's on here now, so hi, Dr. Noyer, I'm just grateful to be in the tribe, right? So I'm just grateful to have the opportunity, where I feel like I've spent 20 years holding my breath, right? 20 years of kind of being in this world where you just kind of think, okay, I'll go one more day. Is anybody going to listen? Maybe not. Okay, next day, is anybody going to listen? And now, for whatever reason, I think it's fated that we have this tribe of people. And I feel like, I can exhale, right? There's people who get it. There's people going to work alongside us. We are at the four corners, literally, of the world, you know, because Saba's in India and you're in England. And, you know, but whatever, right? Whatever it takes to get there. And it's not a U.S. issue. And I think we hijack just about every social issue possible sometimes, right? But these are issues that trickle down and are across systems and across countries. and we have to start somewhere. And yeah, I don't know how to get people to care, but we can just keep talking, and maybe we will hit their heart, hit their soul at some point, and they will have that aha moment where they want to step out. And I hope they come to us. I hope they see us as an open conversation, that please join us. You're not going to be insulted for it. You're not going to be picked apart for it. We're not going to impugn your motives. Please come help us. Please come talk to us. We could use the help. This is such a big issue. It can't be 10 people doing it.
No, oh my goodness. And one of the many things that I say to people behind the scenes with this is, this is not a popularity contest.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I know you have a phrase, but this is not a popularity contest. So to some extent, you have to put your ego to one side. You have to, with something like this, and there are other causes where I would say exactly the same thing, but this cannot be about whether or not you look good, right, whether or not you look like the smartest, the brightest, the cleverest, and all of that. This is about you saying to yourself, is what I'm doing going to signal that I care? Is it going to inspire somebody else to care? Is it going to inspire somebody else to do something? Do you know what I mean? Is it going to inspire me to do something? And then I always see people, like, if you imagine like the chain of reaction that has, do you know what I mean? When, we're all doing these little, what feels like really little things, but actually collectively, that's when you start to feel a force. Because I think at the moment there's so many of us are thinking, oh my God, and we're sitting and waiting, and we're cheering people on from the sidelines, but we don't need you on the sidelines, we need you on the pitch.
Right. No, I totally agree with that 110%. And it goes back, and I think Peter is asking in the chat, how do we get people to believe and acknowledge the problem exists? I would love an answer for that, because there's a whole movement here of, and this has been going on since civil rights, we've adopted this attitude of color blindness, right? So we say, hey, I'm not a racist, I'm colorblind, I don't see color. You certainly see that I'm getting older, so I can promise you that you see color, right? So, and then we kind of walk through that, because that's the cloak that we put on, and that keeps us safe. We say, well, I'm not a racist because I don't see color, and I have a black friend, by the way. Did you know that? So my black friend said, whatever, you never say white friend, but so there's this language that has happened in the white community a lot of trying to justify that they're not racist. And I would challenge, and there's educators and researchers on here that probably are very familiar with Derek Bell. He challenged that notion of colorblindness, that actually having that colorblind mentality has actually hurt people more than it's helped them, right? So by adopting that colorblind perspective, we don't have to see that my town stayed all white, but the next town over was majority racial and ethnic minorities. Well, but it's not me, right? It's not me. And so we kind of have to undo that. And I think almost reteach people that it's okay to see color, because we absolutely have to see the populations that are oppressed the most. We cannot pretend that we are all the same, because right now we aren't all the same, right? It's brought up the education piece. I could talk for education side of things forever, because I totally agree with the person in the chat that you are 110% right too, that we cannot have different funding for students. They are not getting the same education. I see them come into my classroom and huge gaps in their education. It is not intellect, right? And then they get pigeonholed into special education. And there's just all this intersectionality of this snowball effect of what has happened. And people think, well, it's just the neighborhood. Well, it's not just the neighborhood. Well, it's just the school. It's not just the school. It's, just the availability. No, it's not. It's all of things, and they all overlap. And so we have to start addressing all of it. I don't know how we do that, but we have to.
Yeah. And I think, when we talk about this thing about color blindness, and, if I think back, and I can recount so many conversations that I've had with people, and it normally starts with, something along the lines of, obviously pre all of this, because I think now everybody's like collectively woken up, but, pre all of this, it will go like, oh, like, do you still experience racism, because, you know, when I look at you, I don't see, you know, I don't see a black woman. I just see, you know, and off they go, like I see blah, 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 blah. Now, if my answer is to say, oh my God, yes, I still see, you know, I still experience racism and this is what my life is like, there's like a shutter that drops.
Mhm.
Because, and it's almost like as if that comment about I don't see colour is basically saying, I mean, you can tell me about your experiences, but that's not the way I interact with you. So without them realizing, they are invalidating my experiences just because that person is saying, because I don't see you like that, therefore I am the wrong person for you to talk to about your experience. Do you know what I mean? And then off we go talking about the bloody weather or cricket or whatever else it is. Do you know what I mean? So you've got oh, you know, and I think that's the challenge. And also where I see where it hurts the most is in our education system, because if you imagine how many teachers, well-meaning and well-intentioned, think, I don't see colour, right? I treat all of my children the same. But by treating them all the same, you're not acknowledging the differences of their experiences.
Absolutely.
And it assumes everybody the same according to your lens,
Yes.
which for the majority is the white lens. Do you know what I mean?
No, it absolutely is. And, you know, none of this is going to change obviously overnight, but, you know, we have to start these conversations, and we have to start with teacher education. Right? So we have to help them with the culturally responsive teaching, which Dr. Noye is that. And, you know, teaching them to recognize, okay, so we've told you forever. And, you know, the 20 years that I spent in the military, we did the same thing, right? You come in, everybody, you know, becomes, there's no gender, there's no race. You know, we have to become all the same. But looking back now, I wish I could kind of do my career over, because that same thing, that gender neutral, that colorblind perspective, I now, you know, it weighs heavy on me. I think back, okay, what didn't I do right as a leader because I went along with that philosophy? You know, whose needs were I not recognizing? How were they maybe not promoted at the rates they should have been promoted? And mind you, this is 13 years of my career was all spent in minority officer accession. And so even though I'm in the midst of it, there's still that piece of me that is being told we're colorblind, but hey, keep doing this diversity work. But at the same time, we're all the same, but you know, increased minority pilot recruiting, but we're all the same. And so those conflicting messages, I think we have to get real clear in the education system that we have to throw out that colorblind mentality. We have to see where the children are coming from. We have to understand their experiences when they come into the classroom. And this is at the college level, right? So we have 20-year-olds coming into school that have 2 decades of this kind of ignoring their background, ignoring their lived experiences, huge gaps in their education. It's not their fault. They are highly intelligent, but they've been either labeled, degraded, oppressed along the way to be told that they're not as smart, and they carry that in with them. And we have in the college that I teach at, we have a beginning course. And when I stepped into this particular course that we teach, you know, it's like, what's your what do you aspire to be in life, right? Or what do you do to become grittier? And, you know, to kind of step back, and so gritty, you know, is a really popular term here. You know, if you just have enough grit, you'll succeed. It's the American dream. It's the melting pot. You can come in here, and I agree. You know, this is definitely a country where you can make your dreams come true. But some of these people have shown their entire life that they have grit because they survived, right? Okay, they're gritty enough. That's not going to get them over the next hurdle to get out of the oppressive situation that they've been in. They've shown that they can survive in this. What do we need to do to help them? How do we give them the support that they need so they don't have to continue being in this situation, right? So they don't have to continue generationally. Like in Detroit, I mean, Detroit breaks my heart. I mean, literally breaks my heart. And when COVID hit, I almost feel like I could feel the heartache of what was about to come to a community that was pretty much decimated after the housing bust, right? So talk about an entire community that lost 1 million people, and now throw COVID in, and we've ignored them. we have ignored them.
Yeah.
Actually, politically, the leadership in the state where I grew up, we've ignored their cries, we've ignored their needs, and then COVID has just, devastated the community yet again. And then, we use it as statistics, and we say, oh, isn't that too bad? That's really, sad. And I'm thinking, do you understand that these are souls? These are people.
Yeah.
Do you get that? And so it's heartbreaking. And this was kind of how I came to find Dr. Noye in the first place, was we've got to address this COVID issue and what it's done to these communities that have already been harmed so much. And now we do this. And now we do this. All right.
And I think that's the thing about, as you were saying, it's like it's turning a blind eye.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. And, that's what prompted me to speak, in the same way that, that prompted you to kind of, talk to Dr. Joseph. And, for me, that's what prompted me to speak out, because I'm a bit like, how can we pretend that a group of individuals are not hurting in some way, or a group of individuals are not affected? And because it doesn't affect our world, then like I care, like but actually I'm not going to do anything differently. But then on what I say to leaders, in particular in this country, for those who have Black colleagues within their business, how can you turn up every day as a leader and talk about how you're there to support your employees, and yet you ignore your Black colleagues?
Yes.
Because you find all of this uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? That's the bit, like I struggle, and maybe because I have a very naive view of what leadership looks like, because clearly it is not shared by other leaders, of businesses. But that's the thing that I just fundamentally, I don't understand, as leaders of communities, as leaders in politics, in leaders in government, in leaders in businesses, how you can ignore a group of individuals, but yet you care a lot when it's people who look like you. And that's what we're being shown, aren't we, by the silence, by the inaction, is we only care if it is the majority. Yes. And, and some people say, that's not what I mean. And I go, but that's what your silence is saying, though, isn't it?
No, in the leadership aspect, is probably a whole other.
Of course it is. Yeah.
It is the biggest hurdle, I think, globally we have to get past, because there is a very specific population that holds those positions, right? And that's globally, and they control it. So, it's the $1 million question all the time. How do we get them to care? How do we get them to care? I think some of it, honestly, is going to have to be covert. I mean, for real. I mean, it's, how do you make little changes within your organizations that sometimes don't get noticed? So I hope there's not a bunch of executives listening here, because we're coming, and we're going to get in there and we're going to make these little changes within your system that you don't even know that's happening. And it's going to trickle down, and then the hiring is going to change, and eventually these leaders will leave. And then hopefully, we have been able to deliberately develop leaders that will be socially conscious about what is going on in this world. And that doesn't exist in most systems. I don't know. And I'm trying to think, and I've tried to think for a long time, and maybe you have seen it, but have you ever seen an organization that deliberately develops leaders that way, that they start with their hiring process? The military, we do it, but we do it in a very colorblind way, right? So, but that deliberate development, education leaders, I think that was a shock to me to become an educator after I retired, was to walk in and I should have been paying more attention to the students, and not that I didn't love my students, but I was so hyper-focused on the leadership and thinking, how did you get there?
Yeah, all day.
Right. So you hung out long enough, and you happen to be the one that could pay the graduate tuition to get the license, which some of your probably better teachers and potential leaders could not do. And now you're in charge, and we all know what that looks like, right? Yeah. We all know what that kind of processes look like. So, I look at this, it's going to be a multi-generational effort.
Yeah.
And maybe the one thing that you and I do, Shireen, is be that cheerleader.
Yeah. Go, yes, people, yes. I love That's my version of being a cheerleader. I'm not.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to start with them. But there probably will have to be a lot of covert action, and people can in their workplace quietly, without people really paying attention, which is unfortunate. But if you come in guns blazing and you're, going at your leadership and saying everything is wrong with you and the way you do it, first of all, they don't want to do it anyways. But then if you attack them, they're really not going to want to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to make the change. So I feel like I spent 45 minutes and I have no answers for anybody.
No, listen, that's me every day. I always go, I know it's not an answer. It's not an answer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say to everyone, I do apologize. There is a mismatch with my feed, partly because my daughter has discovered Disney Plus. So like this is very important. I tried to hold out and not have it. And so since we have Disney Plus, I cannot remove her from in front of the television. And I specifically said, don't anybody hijack the bandwidth today. So turn it all off. And I know she's watching Disney Plus.
Okay, well.
So I apologize, everybody.
Listen,
that's why there's been a delay.
We're all, a lot of us are mamas. We have to do what we have to do.
I'm just like.
So, if we can be real here for a second, thank goodness that, the Zoom or, this platform only goes to here, because I now have all my Zoom, what I call Zoom outfits. So it's like yoga pants, and then I might look on top, right? So do what we got to do, because we have kids running around and dinner have to be made, and we're trying to, and at the same time, we're trying to do this work, right? So I think we're really serious diversity and inclusion experts and consultants, and then, somebody needs their diaper changed, or, somebody's crying because we don't have any names left, and you go, what world am I living in every day? I don't know what I'm doing.
I know. I do feel the need. So as I said, normally like my feed is always on point, and I have some very nice people who go, oh Shireen, like you're breaking up. I was like, yeah, I can't leave you to go 3 flights to tell my 12-year-old to switch off the television. However, I'm just going to pick, so I'm just going to say to everybody, we're going to wrap up in about 5-10 minutes. You've got the last time to go, any comments that you want, questions for Margie, not for me because you hear from me enough, and we will ask Margie. And I'm just going to go and scroll up because I know there's a tiny bit of a delay, but they all come through they're all coming through all at one point, like they all come.
Well,
so and I'm just
hard questions, right? So I think somebody insulted.
No, they're not hard questions.
Well, they can be hard, and they can be
okay.
Difficult questions. Let's have some difficult conversations.
No, this is a really good question. I don't know who this is because they're not connected with me, but this is a really good question.
I meant to stand up against. No, and I think that's where a lot of people are at right now. And so when people are starting to have that conversation, there's somebody else I'm connected with that is just starting to have that conversation. I told her the same thing. She doesn't have a family at home, so she can't start with her children, but she can start with her workplace. And it happens to be a hairstylist salon, right? And it's a very upper middle class clientele. And I know she's really committed to wanting to be an ally, or what I call an accomplice, somebody who actually takes that step past the allyship into practice. And I said, start where you stand. You have Black employees, but you have no Black clientele. Why is that? Just start there. Start asking questions. And start looking in just our environment. I think we try and look at this problem and we see it so globally, and it becomes overwhelming. Right? So we see the news, we see everything that the news is trying to make us believe about what's going on, and they're manipulating it. And so our brains cannot process all of this. And I would say, please just take a step back. Just start where you're standing. Start in the store. What kind of businesses are you supporting? If you're my hometown and it's almost all white, well, let's start there. Why is that? Why is that the case? And just sometimes it's just starting to ask the questions and starting to do some self-reflection, and in time it'll lead to action, I would hope. So
I agree. I was going to say actually the same thing is like, ask the questions, because, and again, I think even, it's not just about the traditional forms of racism. Do you know what I mean? I think that's when you start to understand the structural stuff. And I can give a really great example of a very senior individual that I spoke to who said, this, like, I had like a knee-jerk instinctive reaction to this idea of white supremacy. And we were just talking, and he's like, I get it. So this was not a question about that. And what he said is, he actually took some proper downtime with his family over the weekend. And he's got 2 young children, 5-year-olds and a 7-year-old. And he was saying, so they were watching, had loads of time, chilling out, TV time, all the rest of it. And he said, for the first time, he said, I looked at my family and I looked at what I was watching on the television. And he said, what would life have been like for my children if at their ages of 5 and 7, that we as a family were watching the television and we never saw anybody who looked like us?
Yes.
And then they're 15, and then they're 25, and then they're 35, and then they go through life. So they step out of their house and they go to a school where nobody looks like them. They go into a supermarket where nobody looks like them. They go to an organization to get a job and nobody looks like them. And they go through their whole life with nobody look like them. And he said, you know what? Like, I get it. And that was his example of trying to understand this whole idea of white supremacy. It's almost like to take the emotion out of what you think the word is. It's not like, BMP. It's not that. Take that out and just really think about it. And that was his way, I guess, of empathizing and going, I don't know your lived experience, but I'm looking at my family and going, how would our lives be different? How would I feel to go through that every single day? And, and that's what I say to people is like you said, ask the questions and empathize and be human and go, okay, so I might not understand all of it, but how would I feel if this happened to me? Like, all of that stuff, it doesn't go away just because we're talking about race. And it's not for you to feel you have to understand everything, but you can just empathize and go, if the shoe was on the other foot, like, how would I feel?
Well, I think there's a piece too that accepting the fact I am never, ever, ever going to know everything about the Black lived experience, about the brown lived experience. It is never going to happen because I never had to live that. And I think there's this control piece sometimes where people enter this space and they think, well, I need to become the expert. And that means all knowing. And then it kind of goes over into ego of, well, I've worked in this forever and ever, so I know everything. If you look like me, you are never, I don't care how much you read. I don't care how many degrees you have after your name. I don't care how much you've worked in this. To the day you die, you are never truly going to fully understand, but you can stand as an accomplice. So I'm kind of just keep navigating away from the ally piece where I could be empathetic all day long. I can empathize. That's really terrible, Shireen. I'm really sorry you went through that.
Yeah.
And then go back to cooking dinner. That's not the same thing as somebody who goes and starts taking action. Yeah. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever you can do with your life to do that. And to stop silencing people's voices. I think sometimes, people in the white community that are trying to do good work, and I'm probably guilty of this right now on this thing, they can't shut up. And you just, I'm sitting here thinking, could you just be quiet for a second and let the voices that have not been heard be heard? And if you cannot do that, then promote their work on LinkedIn, promote it on your social media, let their voice be heard and zip yours for a minute, right? It's not about you. It's not about you. So to get out of that ego place, and we all have ego. So it's, my views sound like it's an absolute, it's not that. I get that there's a spectrum on all of these things and there's a lot of amazing people out there, but right now we have to let the voices be heard that have been traditionally silenced across all areas of this diversity and equity piece. And, hopefully, Shireen, I have a long list of discussion panels and podcasts and things like that I want to do with you because your perspective is phenomenal and it goes across systems. It goes outside of race. It goes to differently abled. It goes to all different kinds of communities. And there's so many of them that have been oppressed from so many different places. And we just have to start undoing that and let people be heard.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I hope, oh gosh, I hope as people are listening and really hearing, and when I do the clips, like, I have to clip and I'll share and post this, I'm going to clip, like, you've got some magic things that you said throughout this, Margie, but there's some real Margie magic that I want to capture. And that is one of those things about letting the voices of those who have been oppressed be heard. And, to do that means that sometimes you have to concede your space. You have to, you're very polite. I basically say you got to zip it. you know what I mean? You just got, you know, and you've got to know that it's, as you said, it's not about you. You know, this is about being able to affect change, but also this is about you recognizing a level of comfort and superiority that you've been afforded,
yes,
purely because of the comfort of you, because of the color of your skin,
yeah,
that not other people have. So that even if you can do nothing, you can elevate the voice of somebody, you know. And just my last thing before I go, because I know like everyone's like, oh gosh, you know, all of this, but is just to say, like, one of the things that I hope, and I kind of already know this because I have lots of different groups of people reaching out to me about my messages. The reality is, what I say, if you took out the word black and you put in any other group and just almost like listened and then just substituted a new word for everything that I've said, everything I say is still relevant, and it cuts across, as you said, it's people who don't have a voice, who are not in positions of strength within society, communities, their organization. And, you know, I just want to say to, you know, anybody, you know, listening in, as I say all the time, it's like, I am just a normal Black woman that can't get the bandwidth working properly when I'm trying to do stuff. I've got 2 kids. I've got a partner that half pays attention to what I'm doing versus not. And yet I show up.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can, like, the smallest of things can make the difference. But, you know, I always keep saying to people, like, you are enough exactly who you are with what you have, the resources that you have. You know, like you said earlier, Margie, we need as many people as possible. And to support Margie is to support me. To support me is to support Dr. Nwaye, to support Chris Dobbins. You know, you're supporting so many people. We might be doing things in very different ways. But equally, we need a tribe, you need a tribe. And so that's the bit about trying to pull everybody together to go, do you know what, if you're up for trying to make the world better and society better in this issue for the benefit of all the other issues, all the isms, you know, the sexisms, all the isms, as Dr. Nwaye says, then you're standing with us. So we need you on the bandwagon and we want you to stay there.
No, 110%. So, and I love all the comments that are coming in. I wish we could address all of those, but they're incredibly kind too, which I appreciate more than you could possibly understand. So the people that are listening, that kindness motivates us to keep moving forward. And it really does, because it's not a place that you get a lot of love, right?
Listen, Margie, tell me, you know, like, I have to give myself therapy pretty much every day, right? Just you know, like, you know, go again. But as you always say, mission before self. That's what you said, you know, when we first connected, and it's really true, right?
It is, but I will take all the love from your participants and your audience, because
we're taking it. We're taking it, and we're giving it right back.
You know, but at the same point, I'm okay with the people that are not showing love, because they show themselves. And I think it's very important too, we know who all those people are, right? So we can avoid them. You know, so I think don't silence them either, because we all need to know who they are, because they've been covert for a very long time.
Yeah.
They're getting triggered right now. So, So thank you for inviting me to this conversation. And, you know, I wish
thank you.
Because I might be doing a weekend trip to England.
I know. Can you imagine? You know, by the time we'll just have like one great big party, because, you know, like, and I have to say, because, you know, I've got to make this point clear. Ordinarily, Margie and I did have songs lined up. We were ready, but due to the fact I've had to leave pretty much one area of my house to come to another to get here, there is no music. So before anyone tries to be slick and says the reason why there's no music is because Margie is white, that is not the case, my friends. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know how people are, Margie. Do you know what I mean? I just got to call it out, so I know what they're going to say. So yes,
my music choices are probably not, you know.
It was amazing. You probably would have seen me stand up and start dancing, and that's what the bit that kills me. But I don't know where my speakers are, so we're not even going to bother. But thank you, everyone, so much as usual for tuning in. Please connect with Margie. Dr. Joseph Nwaye is here in the comments. You know, I will talk more about him and the work he's doing, and Saba Holmes as well. You know, listen, so many people I need to shout, but I want you to show them as much support as you supported me, as you supported, you know, me, Abby and Leanne last week. You know, I'm here. I'll be back with Abby and Leanne next week. I'm probably going to do a weekly thing with them, and I want to get more people, and we'll be talking more and more, because it's really important. And I guess for anybody who is on this journey and thinking, do you know what, like my friends, my family are not quite with me, my colleagues are not with me, you know, we are with you.
Right. So
we are with you. So
we'll be your family. We all know
we'll
that.
be your, yeah, we're right here.
Family sometimes, you know, based on their
Yeah.
behavior. So, and I'm big Leanne and Abby fans, so I think they are probably being very polite as I've harassed them on Messenger, really wanting to get them on some panels and to get their voices.
No, go do it. They got plenty to say, Margie. They got plenty to say. Do you know what I mean? So they're going to be signed. So
Excellent.
yes, and yes, you know, keep sending me the voice notes. As you know, I prioritize messages with voice notes because I like a voice note.
Okay, so
and
that's how I get through to you. All right. So
yeah. Always a voice note. I love a voice note. Live for a voice note. But we talk often, Margie. So we're beyond that now. But yeah. So thank you just for making the time and, you know, creating space to do this. I so appreciate you. I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm right back at you. So I'm looking forward to inviting myself back. So you won't.
No, do it.
Force myself in. So
do it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys, bye. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine for those in the UK, and good morning, America.
That's right.
Yeah, it's making up. All right, see you later.